Liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. We're gonna confirm our next meeting date, which I believe will be 2 weeks from tonight.
June 19th.
What's that, 22nd? No, 19th.
19th.
Okay, June 19th, that is correct. And don't forget, this is a special meeting for, we were supposed to be on our summer schedule, but to accommodate these gentlemen and the applicant, we decided to have a special meeting and try to get this done with, so that's why we're here this evening. Number 4, under continuing business, I guess, we're gonna continue the public hearing for BWC Greenbrook LLC, Blue Wave Solar Site Plan Special Permit, 903 Tremont Street. We left it last time, I think we had covered quite a bit of area over the last couple of months, and they've had 2 public, so 2 or 3 meetings with the public.
We had 2 community meetings
Okay.
and the 2 public
And 2
hearings
public
to date with
Okay.
the board.
I believe the last thing that we left at was the height of the fence. And somewhere here, I have a paper that I would read to you.
There may be all in this,
I don't have anything, did you have the,
I can give it to the, you're talking about the
okay.
email and the
Yeah.
draft decision,
Is that what you're looking for?
or this
Draft
here.
decision.
oh, that's it, yeah, I just wanted to, thank you. After our meeting last time, I met with Jim Aguirre and explained the situation to him. And that was on a Thursday, and he was leaving for West Virginia that afternoon, so he didn't get on it, but I did contact him again Monday, and he's been back and forth with Rich on the specifications of the fence and whether or not it will be allowed. Does everybody have it?
yes.
We all have the email, so if you look at, you can, I don't know if you've all read it, do you want a minute to read
I
it?
read the email.
Yeah, I did too.
Okay.
Never read.
Now, it appears that it is allowable. One of the conditions that, actually Rich suggested this, and it's on the second, well, it's on the second page of my email, I don't know where it is in yours, but it is our understanding that any fence over 6 feet would be considered a structure and would need to comply with the underlying zoning related to building setbacks, which our fence does, as the side and rear yard setbacks are 15 feet in that zone. It is also our understanding that fences of this height would need to be professionally engineered for wind load and structural stability, which would be done prior to building permit with completion of final construction drawings for the array. You've had that over there, Carrie, right? I would like to make that a condition as we move forward, yeah.
It's been incorporated in the draft decision.
Oh, has it?
that you
Since I read it?
That's in your folder.
Okay. Now, since, is there any abutters here? I don't really see any. So we'll come up to the front. Any comments, concerns, questions from the board?
I just wanted to comment, Mr. Chair, I've read, all the information that's been provided by the applicant and see that the list of conditions they're willing to meet. And, at this point, I feel, pretty strongly going forward with this, that's just my opinion. They've met all the conditions.
I agree. Yeah, same here, I think they've met
They've
and
been
in
more
most
than.
cases exceeded at least my expectation.
I know you don't wanna see someone.
No, it ain't that at all. I always vote with the residents, and obviously nobody's here, and at the last few meetings, they seem very satisfied and they're happy. So, I'm happy. I'm not here to bust anybody's ass, that's not what I do.
Like chops.
Yeah, pardon my French, but, I like to represent the residents, you know, and the previous 2 solar array projects, the residents were against that. You know, the abutters. So that's where I stand as a planning board member. I'm always gonna take the side of the resident and the abutters. And at the last community meeting that we had over at Aggie School, you explained the Dover amendment. And just so the rest of the board could hear that, because we hear it a lot from other solar developers. And when you explained it, I comprehended maybe half of what you said. If you could just explain that one more time, and I'm very satisfied with everything too.
Sure.
Okay.
So the Dover Amendment, that Mr. Woods mentioned is Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 3. It's called the Dover Amendment because it came out of a case that protected, I believe it was a religious use. And so typically, or historically, it was used to protect those religious and educational uses that were on the periphery, non-mainstream. And so the way it reads is, no town shall enact a bylaw that unreasonably regulates or prohibits. And so it's religious, educational, and then when the solar program came in, I forget how many years ago, solar, it has a separate provision, but still within that same 48 Section 3, allowed the Dover Amendment to be applied to it. And so the town has to be very careful with the zoning bylaws that it creates and also how they implement them. And so sometimes zoning on its face isn't going to be an issue, but how it's implemented could actually be an issue. And so, I mean, aside from the fact that I think Blue Wave has done everything and actually complies with the bylaw, I think the town always has to be aware of making sure that they're not unreasonably regulating or prohibiting the use of solar specifically. So I'm happy to go into more detail.
Thank you for that explanation.
And it can go in any zone,
Right.
you can't stop.
You know,
around.
and that Dover Amendment goes back to 1895.
No kidding.
And how
It's that old.
solar got into it within the last 5 years.
A good lobby, I think.
Yeah, very
Exactly.
good.
A great
That was
lobby,
like
yeah,
backdoor
no
deal.
doubt.
But thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that, you know, on my behalf, to you gentlemen that are here this evening and presented all this information to us, it was very thorough, to the point, on time with everything we've asked for. And me as a member, I greatly appreciate that. Because getting the information forwarded before we get an opportunity to meet, you can absorb it, look at it, you know, engineering drawings, that type of thing. And so, on the board's behalf, myself, I just thank you. We appreciate that.
That's it.
Are we all set with the fence? Did you have that engineered? It's
Yeah.
feasible?
To locate, yeah, that's, I mean, there'll be final structural drawings that will be prepared, but this fence is similar to like some of the noise barrier type fences you see
Yeah,
along
yeah.
the highway. It's a common practice to engineer what needs to be done for that.
Now, there was a change on the fence on the east side, is that right?
Yes, basically, what's shown here is what's represented on these plans. The square line type is what the wood, is where the wood, 11-foot wood fence would be. This was the change we made on the side of this to accommodate the abutter here, because he was concerned we did have a portion that was going back to chain link, but this is now wood all the way around down to here. Back here, we're still with just the chain link out in the
Yeah,
woods
out in the woods,
here. And the same thing protecting the wetland over here. That's the chain link, and then there's another small section of wood fence here. The other thing you guys were looking for was a stamped landscaping plan, which is incorporated into the final set. I do have it on the board here as well. Stamped by myself and the registered landscape architect, which takes into account the additional plantings that we had talked about wrapping around this corner here
Okay.
to accommodate them, and also just dispersing these juniper around like we've discussed. 8 feet height on the trees, and then the intent of these is to plant these in front of the berm and the fence.
They'll be 8 foot when you put them in?
Yeah, it's a 7-8 foot.
Right.
That's the.
Now, is there to
spec,
be a
actually.
performance bond set aside for foliage if it dies?
Yeah,
That's
20,000, right?
We have a $20,000 bond
Okay.
for the landscape in the draft
Okay, the
permit.
fence is separate out of the landscaping, is that correct, or is that included, because?
No, from the fence, I think.
Okay, because I would just wanna say that, just throw this out there, 20-year life expectancy with a $20,000 account, you may have more than $1,000 worth of damage possibly in a year, but that account will still have to be replenished as you go along, so that should just
So
cover
to
it.
always keep it at 20,000, you're saying?
Yeah, to replenish that account.
And we're not gonna touch that money unless, you know, if we call and we say there's a problem, you need to
Separate from
come
the fence.
do some planting or fix the
Yeah, that'd
fence
be separate from the fence.
within a reasonable amount of time, then that's fine. But if you don't show up to do it, we're gonna do it.
Well, I
Send
just
you a
want,
bill.
I wanna verify that, the landscaping bond will be separate from the fence bond?
Well, I think we went to 20 because of the fence, if I'm not mistaken, from the last
Okay.
time, so I think
That's what I thought,
that's why
but
we
yeah,
were
I
at
think so,
20,
so.
and we landed on that number to
How many feet of
incorporate
fence are there?
That's a good question.
It's.
The fence is not gonna be cheap, I'm sure.
1,500 feet of wood, I think roughly. I don't.
1,500?
Yeah,
1,500
It's
feet
a
of
big
wood?
number, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good figure, yeah.
And probably another like 400 or 500, I just can't remember them off the top of my
I
head.
don't remember.
It's a good number of feet.
I think the majority of that will be spent on fence maintenance, no? Is it cedar fence?
It would likely some sort of, yeah,
Yeah.
Wood-
Disease
wood-
resistant
right,
and
oh, yeah, I mean,
insect
that's-
resistant
yeah.
fence. I'd like to add also, and I don't know if it's your maintenance plan or not, that, if we've discussed it or put it in here about, any of the vegetation trees that get eaten by deers or they die, they will be replaced with that bond.
Mhm.
Just so we're on the same page, so.
Again, if we
If they don't take care of
skip
it.
town and then.
Right,
nothing
that money will
else.
never
So
be
that's-
touched as long as you take care of it.
That's what the
That's your,
Cal states.
you know, contingency plan, I guess I thought.
So for clarification on their draft conditions, the $20,000 landscape performance security agreement, that's gonna include the fence too, that's part of landscaping?
Okay, so I thought-
I just wanted that to be
Okay.
clear, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for the
All right,
clarification.
Do you
Thank
feel that's enough? You're all
I
professionals.
honestly thought that it was not the fence included into that, but
Um, What is your
I think-
opinion on maintenance and all of that of the fence?
I mean, I believe the $20,000 is fine, because I don't think anyone wants to kind of risk having that pull.
Are you guys happy with the 20,000 before we?
I am.
Before we vote?
Yeah, I am, because the account will be replenished as they use, so I wouldn't have a problem with that.
If it's used.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's always that underlying caveat too, so. I just wanna say this, just on my behalf again, the applicants have been, how do I say this, very, calm in this whole situation. And, I do appreciate that, because I know it's been tough on them to come to a meeting after meeting after meeting to try to get something done. And unfortunately, that's how things work sometimes out there in the world, but, you know, we're here as a board to do the best, to look out for the best interests of not only the applicant, but the town of Dayton and the residents, so.
I think you have a great project. I'd be interested to see how it all comes out when it gets operational. As you know, or don't know, Dayton is a right to farm community, number one, and we're a green community. So this kind of meets both of those things going on in Dayton at the time, so. I'm very happy with the way you guys presented yourself. Again, good project. I wish you the best of luck with it.
Thank you. We're
both
excited
of you.
about becoming part of that community.
You too, but I
Mr.
think the
Chairman,
farmer.
we appreciate it.
They'll always take a compliment.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'm gonna entertain a motion to, approve, BWC Greenbrook LLC.
You're gonna need to make a motion.
Make a motion, Blue Wave Solar Site Plan, special permit, that we approve,
With condition.
with conditions.
I'll second that.
The application with conditions.
And maybe before you vote, have we seen that, all of the conditions, because I know there was condition number 3 with the effectiveness, and I know that.
Yeah, I was looking at that.
Peer
Did you give
review
him a copy of that?
engineer.
Did you, so Mr. Peter Williams
Yeah.
revised that once again.
Okay.
And do you have an extra copy
Yeah, but it
there?
didn't get.
I don't see it on
Didn't
that
get
one.
put into this
He
commission.
redlined it, so this part here is what he revised.
No, it's number 3 we was
Number
talking
3,
about,
and then
the last sentence.
Yeah, I don't think that came clear in his
Some
email. I think he was
numbers.
suggesting that we would propose something, and that he
Okay.
was in favor, because Rich had talked to him about what that proposal would be, but
Okay.
it just didn't show up in the red line.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Because he
why
just
don't we
didn't-
Yeah, I can discuss,
present
yeah,
your-
yeah.
Did you get a copy? So
Yeah, I
you
gave
have
them
a
a
copy
copy.
of that
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
you'll also note in there that when I was proofing my minutes, I forgot about the discussion about the
Sure.
maintenance schedule for the fencing, so we have to incorporate that in there as well.
Not a problem.
Which can be part of your discussion here.
Basically, the last sentence of number 3, and I had emailed Peter this morning about that as well, as opposed to saying the effectiveness of the visual barrier will be confirmed. That's kind of a subjective type of thing. What I had suggested to him would be that confirmation that the visual barrier complies with the design plans shall be presented or provided to, prior to the final occupancy permit. It's just, I think it protects what you guys are looking for with that comment, but it also, helps us, I guess, with
Yep.
what the legal.
I'm sure the building commissioner will know if it meets the standards.
Exactly.
Of whatever,
Yeah.
What we proposed to you and said,
Yeah, so in this case, it comes across as an accessory structure,
Mhm.
so you have to,
Yeah, so that, I think with that change in that language on number 3, I think we would be happy with the rest of the rest of the modifications and the rest of the conditions.
and do we wanna talk about landscaping and the timing of
Yeah.
the plantings? What's your timeline for doing some planting?
Right, so it's just maybe, again, we spoke about it, maybe
Yeah.
a temporary, it might be customary to have a temporary occupancy permit, but just considering, obviously we all want, a successful planting of the evergreens. So if we happen to finish the project in February, we'd like the ability to operate the plant until the season turns
Absolutely.
to put those in. And we talked to our arborist, and he said that the season to plant is between 4:15 and 6:15 in the spring before it gets very hot, and then
Yeah,
again,
fall.
9:15 to 11:1.
Absolutely.
Those would be the planting seasons for the junipers.
12,
So we'd like to,
12 sunlight.
to the extent that we don't
Mhm.
finish during those windows, we'd like the ability to kind of hold off until, if we finish in July, hold off until, 9:15 to start that process, or.
Okay.
or
Just make
later.
sure that they're
Yeah.
successful. I think.
That's what we want, success.
Yeah, I mean, you still have the fence there, of course, but
Yeah, the
we're
fence
just
is
talking
what's-
about, the junipers.
When do you plan on breaking ground, per se?
Well, that's gonna depend on, going through the process of the building permit, as well
Right.
as, kind of going through the program that we have here,
Yeah.
the SMART program. So it's a little to be
Right.
determined, as well as the utility schedule.
Yeah.
Oftentimes during this project, you're gonna sync up with when the utility says,
Yeah.
we're gonna do our work on our end, so you can do your work on our end, and we connect, and, everybody goes from there. So
Good.
it's a little to be determined at this point. But is that condition regarding the planting of the junipers sound reasonable?
Yes, it
Oh, yeah,
does.
absolutely.
Great.
We just have to include that in the conditions, that's all.
Thank you.
Well, there
Anything
was
else?
at one point you guys said you were gonna do part of the fence prior to the arrays being installed, is that still?
Yeah, I think that was something that, what Mr. Hanson brought up, the butter there.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there you go, there you are, you're here.
I snuck it in.
Yeah.
I snuck it at the end.
There you go. Yeah, I think the challenge with that, the concern I have with that is, given the requirements of the fence and making sure that is done, exactly the way it needs to be, because visual screening for the long term is such an important component here, that I would,
Want the fence
the normal
first.
phase is to do the project and then the
Then
fencing to
wrap
make
around,
sure it's there.
absolutely.
So to do that, and of course, we're talking about in the big scheme, we're talking about a 20-year life project, but it's a 5-month construction period. I'm concerned about kind of doing all the berm, the fence, all that first, and then going in and having maybe some field adjustments for some of the solar farm here, based on subsurface conditions, et cetera, there's, tons of things that go on in the field. To then have that fixed and have to go in and modify all that would be a challenge, and as well as the equipment that you need to bring in there to basically have a barrier there.
Yeah, it makes
front.
sense,
It makes-
installation
it's a
first and
really-
then finish.
So I'd like to, again, it's a very small window of time that we're talking
Yeah.
about in the big scheme of things.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, I agree. It's
Good.
fine. Well, how many months do I have to look at it before I get the fence in place?
I'm sorry?
I guess my concern is the opposite of having to look at it for how many months before, once you start putting the arrays in, before you put the visual screening in.
You just start
Right.
behind his house?
I'm directly across from Tremont Street.
Directly across.
Oh,
From the-
directly.
From the building. Yeah, I mean, but it's,
Directly
in my
across from
view,
the
it's
driveway.
more like, you know, any other.
Well, the
kind of
fence will be up
construction
before the
process.
switch comes on, we're sure of that.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
So if it's a 5-month period to put the arrays up, you could possibly be looking at it for 2-3 months.
There's not something they can do in the meantime, is put some sort of intermediate. I mean,
I don't-
It's we've thought about, it's a challenge based on the fact that you're dealing with those heights and you need to have, you know, it's an engineered fence. It's difficult to kind of put, you know, any small temporary thing is just not gonna help screen them. So, if you're okay with that, I like that.
It makes common sense from a construction standpoint, you know, from what you're gonna do. You know, as you said, if the heights go off in there and then you gotta, if you do the fence first, you gotta go back in there, take out fence, make a higher berm or whatever you gotta do.
Yeah, it's just, it gets in the way. I've
Yeah.
worked on many huge construction sites, just temporary, even temporary fence gets in the way of walls, equipment you're using on a job site, just, it can be a hindrance.
so, I mean, don't we know what the height of these are? I mean, that's sort of what we
That's
decided
all.
here, right? I mean, we know how high the panels are, how high the berm and fencing should be.
That's all on the plans.
Yeah, they came in,
Everything
were you
is
here when they brought the plans in for the
So I
elevations?
don't necessarily see why they can't do both at the same time, or what, to, you know, wait until the end, until you build the berm, if you know, if everything's been engineered, I don't see why they couldn't do both, at least both at the same time, or whatever.
Keep
Why
in
don't we
mind,
do
keep in
this?
mind, it is I think the board is all in you know, trying to work with you as best as we can. To keep in mind on the concerns that we have for the residents, and see if you can get that done a little quicker than not.
Yeah, Rich, that's a good point. I mean, to the extent that we can get the berm or something in.
A berm and a
if-
temporary
if we're
fence of that
doing-
height,
if
and then
we're-
you'd have to just reinstall later, I don't know, something,
I was
you
just,
know,
I was just
it's-
suggesting
it's-
maybe, you know,
it's-
we just, even a condition of some sort that the fence will be put in as soon as possible during the construction process, you know, which is, you know, feasible for them to do it.
I mean, once you get the row of arrays there, that's it, you know, you should be able to get started on the fence.
So you're gonna start
Yeah,
from
kind of a-
south to north, back
Which
toward
house is
north,
this?
or how you gonna,
Right across the street.
directly across
He's
the
there.
the main gate?
On Tremont
Oh, is that
Street.
it?
On Tremont.
It's this house here, right?
Yeah.
That lot right there, right across from the
main
building.
gate.
Yeah.
Construction's construction, the way I look at it. Like if somebody's building a house next door to me, it's gonna look like crap until it's finished.
Yeah.
So, you know, I ain't got a
Well-
problem with that.
Yeah, you know, if you do the array across the front, then, well, it's not fenced behind the house though, behind the farm, is there? Is that chain link?
Behind the farm, over here.
Yes, that's
This
chain
is all
link.
wood.
That's all wood.
Oh, that's all
It wraps
wood.
all
Yep.
wood all the way
Yeah.
around.
Well, perhaps
With
if
that
you,
chain link
when you
on
do
that.
that area there, maybe you could fence up, you know, I'm just saying. Either way, I'm fine with your schedule, but you know where we're coming from.
Understood.
The sooner you can protect his interests and so.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
I know a lot of people that drive by there, I'm one of them, so I'll remind you of that. But anyways,
I only go by a couple times a day.
All right, motion's made and seconded, any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any no abstentions?
Wow,
Everyone in
this
favor?
is-
Thanks a lot.
Okay, that
Thank you.
passes
Thank you.
unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Thank
Good
you
luck.
very much.
Appreciate it.
love to see it work. I
You ever get
really
your
do.
crops in the ground yet?
Yeah.
Mr. Cabral, you got your crops in the ground yet?
He does.
Most of it,
Most of it?
wait for some seed.
At least the weather got a
Like
little better
everybody's
for a
late
while.
for
Thanks, guys.
for any kind of farming.
Hey, guys, good luck, good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Forward to
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Good luck, bud.
Part of
Good
the
luck.
community.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Hey,
Thank
Sam.
you.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Happy to work with you anytime in another town.
Good luck.
Last one, last one.
Good luck.
Decision
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Hey,
Oh,
Jim.
thanks for your patience.
See that?
Mr. Cabral, thank you for your patience and
Your
all.
wife
Take
did
care,
it?
good luck.
Yeah, did
He
a
had
hell
a
of a
few,
job.
he had a few tough.
Glad it worked out for you.
Yeah, okay then. Good luck.
Thank you, have a great night, take care.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes of May 15th, 2019?
I'll make that in the form of motion, Mr. Chairman, that we
So what
approve
they
the
do is
meeting minutes of May 15th, 2019.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion is made and seconded to approve the meeting minutes of May 15th, all in favor?
Aye.
Timestamp the
Opposed?
following day with the town clerk.
Motion carries.
I'll
Motion to
scan
adjourn.
and email it off. so that you
I'll
have
make that in the form of
and I'll
motion,
let you know
Mr. Chairman.
what the
Motion
time
to
frame is.
adjourn.
It's 20 days, so.
Okay, motion is made and seconded to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing's still
Thank you very much, thank you.
Thank you, Cable.
Wait a time out.
Whoa.
You guys have to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion is made and seconded to close the public hearing, all in favor?
Aye.
Closed.
Okay, we got ahead of
Yes,
ourselves.
okay.
Yes,
So-
I'll make a
Thank
motion
you.
to
And then you
adjourn.
need to sign one more
Okay,
for me.
motion is made again to adjourn.
Second.
Well,
Favor?
Aye.
I know it is,
Formality.
no, I think it's because you're
Thank you,
extending
Cable.
your
Good
time.
night.
Thank you,
It's
Cable,
been expensive.
as always.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, let the camera run in case I say something.
Yeah, I know.
Purposely.
They wanna catch Woody in a faux pas.
They always get Tom. They always